art can mean different things to different people. For me, it's all about the joy of creativity. So if you draw, paint, write, dance, sing, craft, play air guitar, or even sculpt using nothing more than mashed potatoes, consider yourself an artist and join our conversation. For the next half hour, meet the artist and learn about their inspiration while we all enjoy the beauty of creativity. Welcome to Season 2 of ARTalk with John Cole Artist. Well, good evening, everyone. It is February 2nd. No, it's not. It's February 6th. You know, every single time I do these podcasts, Mark, all last year I did the same thing. I never knew what day it was. It's a good thing I have a calendar here. It's February 6th, 2024. And I want to welcome you all to my first episode of this year. And I'm so happy to have Mark de Cordoba with me tonight. Mark is a good friend of mine. We've worked together now for about a year through various programs and writing exercises and stuff. And Mark, I really wanted to have you on tonight because we're kind of doing something that we've never done before. And I really wanted to get your feedback on how everything's going. But before we get to that, I was hoping you could introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Well, thanks, John. It's wonderful to be here. And I've been hearing about this podcast for a while from other people. So it's exciting to have a chance to, just kind of dig into a topic like this. So I'm Mark de Cordoba. I reside in the Denver metro area, a place called Broomfield, Colorado. So right in sight of the Rocky Mountains, and they have a lot of snow on them today.
Beautiful.
And we've had some snow here, and I think that's not uncommon for us. But today, it was actually, I did remember the date, John, because February 6th was my deadline for putting in our writing draft, which is our draft book that we're both working on through our program. As far as my background, it's mostly I went through the University of Colorado in the business school, so I have kind of a business background, which quickly led to technology and kind of the IT route for many years. I've done both, individual kind of technology work as well as manager. I've done consulting, which has been a lot of fun to be able to essentially fly around the country to different clients and do consulting with products and projects together. So kind of bringing new products to our customers, helping them get situated and set up for success. And then the last many years, I'd say the second half of my career has been largely in healthcare. I've worked as what's known as a program manager, and that is essentially someone who runs large sets of projects. In healthcare, we have projects on all different levels. Some of them are technology, some of them are clinical and clinical processes. Others could be things like HR restructuring or buying a new clinic, or all types of different ways that healthcare makes progress and looks to do improvement projects. And sometimes there are also like government or regulatory ones that we just have to comply with. So whether it's reporting or data or what. And anyway, my last couple of years have been involved, as John said, in this program, which is part of the Unapologetic Power program where we met. And I have had a chance to meet John and his wife and spend time with them several times through the events that have been coordinated there, as well as we've both kind of done something called up-leveling, which has moved us to the chance to both write chapters in books, present on stage, and we probably bit off a little more than we can chew here. We're both writing books within a very compressed 2-month period, which will be an interesting roll of the dice for both of us, I'm sure. But in my case, I'm really enjoying the work. And like I said, I just finished my draft today and turned it in so I can take a breath and join you on this call.
Well, I'm glad. And you're right. Today was the deadline for the first, I think it was 75% of the book, right around 65 to 70 pages, give or take. So yeah, it was, so congratulations for that. That really is a major milestone. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. We do have some people on that tonight. Christine, my wife, she says hello, beautiful souls. Gretchen Johnson, all the way from the Pacific Northwest. She says, hiya. All right. Hiya, Gretchen. And of course, Michelle Sullivan, who's been on our show a couple times now. She does her own business as far as the grief recovery method and things like that. So hi, Michelle. And thank you for joining us tonight. So yeah, I mean,
hello to all of you. I know you are.
So your background as a project manager, as a you have your PMP certification and things like that, project management and stuff like that. That doesn't lend really well, I think, or does it, to what we're trying to do with this book. Now, as a little background to it, this program that's run by Allison Roberts, she's a cognitive behavioral expert, and she is an expert. I mean, she's been fantastic. I've worked with her now for coming up on 3 years. And she decided to introduce this new program to us called Unapologetically Launched. And the whole idea is for us to basically write self-help books, which is new to me. I don't know if it's new to you or whether or not that was an easy fit for you, Mark. Was it a big transition, I guess, is the question?
Yeah, kind of going back to your first comment about what it's like in my profession to sort of transition to this. I thought when I first came into this, at least the writing portion of this program, that I was actually a very, very good writer. I'm very attentive to detail. I tend to write memos, communications, reports, any manner of business communications in my job. But obviously, I think the difference here, whether it's a book or a chapter, is that that sense of emotional vulnerability that we have to go through. So instead of kind of writing the sort of, corporate speak, if you will, you really have to kind of dig down. You have to get really deep in your vulnerability, become unhidden and deal with those areas that most people would not want to talk about, right? And to do so in a way that draws in your audience and hopefully relates them to what you've gone through, what you're going through, and maybe helps someone along the way who would read it.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. With my military background, it was the same thing. There wasn't a lot of, it wasn't what I would call, it wasn't what I would call a touchy-feely organization, right? It was very structured. And of course, any military organization, even the Coast Guard, very orders-based. A supervisor gives you an order and you execute that order to complete the mission. So yeah, stepping into the world, or into a world where you're, you are touching on some pretty sensitive subjects. I know, parts of my book, we're going to be talking about the relationship I had with my father, who passed away in 1987. And it's a challenge for me because I'd only been in the Coast Guard for 3 years when he passed. So here I am, almost 35 years later, looking back on that event, having been in this structured organization for so long. It can be challenging.
Yeah. And as many probably of the viewers here might know, I lost my wife about 3 years ago, and so actually 4 years ago now, and that recovery process, the grief process, and everything is actually something I chose to address in the chapter of the book that we both wrote for John, which was the Behind the Power book, and it was interesting. It was probably one of the most difficult things to write about naturally. But at the same time, I think as I go into this next project with the full book, I believe that we now have, or I feel at least a lot more confident that I can do the next book, having already sort of overcome the most difficult topics. And again, as you said, it's a huge step up. But it's also something that we have evidence now that we can do this.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something just a couple minutes ago. or implied it. And I think that's the relatability with being vulnerable. Now, again, I have to applaud you for even doing this program, because I think Allison's program tends to draw in a lot, overwhelmingly female, and there's a very small number of men that are part of this program. And yet, when you watch certain social media channels, you see that there are a lot of men that are struggling with this type of thing, right? Whether or not it's feelings-based thing, or whether it's not, or whether it's even getting to know who you really are, because I think that has been a big challenge for me.
Mhm.
Who exactly am I? I mean, I started, working when I was, 19. Seems a little late, but trust me when I say that my job experiences prior to that were not that great. They weren't that stellar. So I really started to seriously look at work when I was 19 years old. Um, and when you're of our generation, work was something that, was kind of drilled into us. You work hard in order to achieve. Now that swung a little bit, thankfully. I don't think it's as severe as it was then. But when you're in that mindset for such a long period of time, it's difficult for men to really say the things that they're thinking, because they tend to be judged for it.
Mhm.
Men don't cry. Men are the leaders, men are the heads of the household, which is all a bunch of horse poop. You know what I mean? Um, so I applaud you for that. So congratulations again for taking that step to do that. Now, Michelle Sullivan, can you two reveal what you are writing about in each of your books, and what was our driving thought?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I can. I'll keep it very high level, of course, not to give away too many plots. But in my case, I wanted to still stay in that realm. I think very much what you touched on, John, which is um, professional. I guess not just males, females and males who are professionals, basically, who are going through something. Might be a personal trauma. It might just be overwhelming stress, juggling too many things. How to essentially unplug from their jobs in this sort of 24-hour culture that we have now, with
Right, right.
technology always on. And so my book is about essentially work-life balance, and how to, as again, more towards a business professional, uh, balancing what I ended up finding as multiple quadrants. So you have sort of the one corner is work, or your income, right?
Mhm.
Probably the biggest and most urgent thing for people. And then you have your family needs, and kids soccer games, and events with the family, or with the extended family. And then another quadrant would be your own self development, personal growth, um, even sense of like career things you may want to do with your career, but you never seem to have time to add those skills, or learn new tools. And then the final quadrant has to do with people relationships outside of all those other areas. So it may be something where someone from work, but you're really developing kind of strategic relationships. Those relationships are going to actually help you to grow.
Mm,
And these programs that we're in would be a perfect example of
right.
ways that we have strategic relationships, whether you want to call them that or not, or just friends. But they are sort of that essential part of the balance, circle that we go through. So it's really about life balance, and the method is to tell stories. And I have many stories from my
Mm.
work life career, and then sort of how did I handle various situations, which I can go to more in depth if we go that direction.
No, I think that sounds great. I'm already looking forward to reading it, because I think that's a very appropriate topic. Like you said, I think that we do tend to have this culture which is, constantly going. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I find myself, even just this morning, it's difficult for me to just sit and not do something,
Mhm.
let alone, have relationships. I mean, it could be very challenging. So I can't wait to read it. I'm already ready for it. Right. And Michelle, as far as mine goes, uh, what it's turning out to be, it's a little bit different than what I had intended. But what I found through the way that I write, um, is I'll start off with one idea, and then over time it does tend to morph because the best laid plans as far as outlining and things like that, sometimes what you intend to talk about just doesn't quite fit. So where the book is heading right now is it really is using my personal stories, just like yours, really, really defining a couple things. Number one, how important our stories are to the world. And that dawned on me this morning when I was just doing some journal work, that really that no matter how boring we think our lives are, they're really not. They're really not. And because everybody has unique experiences, and yet these unique experiences are not unique. We tend to think that they're unique, but they're really not. So that's part of it, is really the power of storytelling, of our personal storytelling. And it's also which is really interesting, is it's really turned into conversations with my father, because my father was a person in my life that really influenced me, not necessarily in a positive way, but he was really a very influential person in my life. And I talk a little bit, or not a little, I talk a lot about that as well, because I think by understanding him, even though he's been gone for more than 20 years, I'm able to understand myself, because a lot of what I am, I learned from him. And a lot of what he learned from his father. So we end up taking a look at this generational, I'll use the word generational trauma, although in some cases it's really a generational mindset. If I grow up in a household with a very strong work ethic, I'm going to tend to have that ethic. The question is, where did he get his from? And I explore that in the book, and for me, it's been very therapeutic. It's really educated me as well, and it's really put my father more in the perspective where I can understand why he was the way he was. And to be honest with you, Mark and Michelle, that really has been very enlightening, and it's led to a lot of forgiveness. So for me, it's been a very therapeutic process. So hopefully that answers your question. So, and my daughter Tracy's on. Hi, Tracy. Tracy was on the show as well a couple of weeks ago. Actually, no, it would have been last year. I think it's fair to say anybody I talked to has been on my show last year. That'll make it easy for me. So we went down to Florida at the beginning of the year, and we all got together, all the authors, and I think there's 7 of us.
Yeah, I think originally it was 8. Maybe it's now 7. Yes, I think that's
right. Right. And we basically spent 5 days, 4 full days, maybe half a day towards the end, working on our books. So what did you think of that? How did that go for you, Mark?
Well, I certainly looked forward to a trip to Florida in January, especially with everything I just said about the weather. Mm-hmm. It turned out funny. I think we should at least mention this, right, John? So John and I, we decided we'd share an Uber. Yeah. And I know that was a little stressful for you, having not done Uber rides before.
Yeah, I've never done Uber before. Yeah.
And I think in the end, didn't we end up more in a taxi to get out, or was it an Uber?
We ended up taking a taxi there to the place, and then on the way back, what happened was I loaded up the app, but apparently, for some reason, the system wouldn't let me register my phone. So we had to have Allison make the reservation for us. Then I had to Venmo Allison, and then we took it just was, it was a roundabout way to get there, but yeah.
Right. Well, we had been given a tip off that, coming from the airport might be quicker if we just grabbed the first taxi, which we did. And, in the end, probably a little bit more expensive, but I tell you what, it was a very direct route.
It was.
Got there early, probably got there too early. But it allowed us to have a nice meal and then walk down the beach. And I think the funniest memory I have of that is dragging our suitcases and our luggage all the way to, several blocks down to the beach with bumpy roads, with no sidewalks, and cars coming at us on both sides. We survived, right?
We did indeed, yes.
But to get to the point of, how did it go there? Essentially, we had a rental house that had private rooms for everybody, and also some shared spaces. And there were three aspects to it. One was kind of a coaching program that happened in the morning, which really allowed us to drill down, like, what are you writing about? Why are you writing about it? Who are you? Who's your audience?
Right.
What do you want them to take away from it? Those kind of, core questions when you think about any sort of book or project. And then we had individual sessions with Laura, our coach, who did mostly 4-hour sessions with people. I think a one 4-hour session. Sometimes, like in my case, where I was a little not ready for the full 4 hours, we split it up into 2-2-hour sessions. But you add those in, and then everything else, every other hour was supposed to basically be writing.
Mm-hmm.
So we all had our computers. We all went to different corners of the house, wherever we could find a spot that we felt was conducive. And we just started writing. And then, that would kind of go back through, again, some reflection points where you could go to the coaching in the morning, say, oh, that's what she means by,
Mm-hmm.
what does my audience member really need? And we really drilled in on that in ways that, ours was much more surface level, I'm sure, getting there. But once we left, we had a very detailed statement of each of those components of our book, our audience, and ourselves even, what we wanted to provide, what we wanted to really share with the reading world out there.
Right. Yeah. My meeting with Laura was fantastic. Laura is our editor. She helped edit. Actually, I think she edited the Behind the Power, Your Success is Waiting on You book last year. She's going to be doing editing on all the books this year. And right, part of and you mentioned this, part of the prerequisite for us to go down there was to have like the first 30 pages done. And I met with Laura towards the end of the week. So I probably by that time had like 55 pages. I wasn't a fast writer because I'm like, well, which direction should I go? Right. So I did what I could. But what's really funny, Mark, is Laura did a fantastic job. I mean, she is just wonderful, right? She was patient. Yeah. She did what she said. She said she's helping to restructure things to the point where I got back and I had to rewrite all those pages I wrote, because what I wrote really wasn't what it needed to be. And I think that although I probably sat there for the week after I got back going, what the heck? I just did all this writing and I got to scrap it all. But really, that's what writing's about, and I think that if you're going to write something, because I've written my autobiography or part of it, and I did this, I self-published it a couple of years ago. And the difference between that and the guidance that Laura, our editor, provided was that the first time that I did anything like this, that I self-published, it was all matter of fact. It was all basically informational, right? I grew up on this street. I moved when I was 10 years old. I used to ride my bicycle, which is great, right? For me, it's a good memory to have. I can pass it on to my daughter, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of the approach I took on the first 30 pages. And after I met with her, and again, this is why having an editor or somebody, a second party or third party read what you're doing, is she's like, well, where's John in all this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? I think we both share that same
right.
thing. I call that narrative writing, which is essentially, the who, what, where, when, right, without really any of the revealing of what you were thinking, what you were right, feeling, what was the anger that was boiling up, whatever that was. Yeah. And you're right. I think probably the only thing that would have served me better, I actually had the benefit of having 2 sessions, so I could kind of write in between and get more feedback. Right. And I think perhaps that approach might have been better for everybody, because you could kind of go in and say, here's what I've got now. Right. Let's do a deep review, but then let me go back and write and have some more feedback. So I think something like that might have been slightly better for others. I know it certainly benefited me and helped me, again, just focus towards the target better and better as I went. And then I think similarly here, we kind of have a whole month before we had to turn in our big package. And again, it is good. I think all of us had at least one session, but there's a concept, I'll bring it up. It might seem a little irrelevant, but even in our technology projects that I work on all the time, there's something called Agile, and Agile just essentially means instead of implementing this big project over 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, you bring product or solutions every couple weeks, and then people get to look at it, taste it, feel it, try it out. Right. And then they can give you feedback and you can make quick changes. So that's why it's called Agile. You're moving in a more agile format or more agile process. And I kind of like that for writing too, because this idea of I'm going to just produce tons of pages doesn't work well for me anyway. I would rather produce a chapter, have it reviewed, you're on the right track, or as you were saying, John, we need a little bit more of you in the story, and then write the next chapter with some of those new guidelines, new thoughts, new ideas, and probably getting closer and closer. So you're kind of just, again, honing in on the target, to use your military terminology, right? And getting maybe a better flow over that time, instead of maybe waiting a whole month and now we're going to have another month, right, for our next deliverable, our next package to go out. So I think that, and perhaps even better is to have a writing buddy, somebody who can help you through that. I know John and I did a lot of that when we were doing our speech preparation for October last year. We had a chance to meet and get feedback, and then meet again 2 weeks later and get more feedback. And I just like that. It's like more of we call it iterations or iterative.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a very aggressive schedule, pushing out what we pushed out in a very short period. Like I said at the beginning, congratulations for meeting that milestone. It really is a big deal. And I think for anybody that signs up for a program like this, or even if you're writing your own book, outside of, a program or having an editor, it still is it really is a very huge effort. It takes a lot of work. And if you're like me, you'll write a sentence, realize you hate it, go back and rewrite it, hate it, go back and rewrite it. And 3 hours later, you're still trying to get that first sentence, but for me, once I get that first sentence, I'm all good. Now the book, though, the books are our books. I think the idea is that sometime towards middle to late spring, we'll start to see these things show up on Amazon, which I am very excited about. And as part of the program, though, there's one other piece, which is the TEDx talk.
Yeah. So we've had our stage opportunities. I know I've had 2 different stage opportunities with Allison, and you've had at least 2. So this will be now, the proverbial on steroids thing, right? Where you have to now not only be memorized. Now, thankfully, we did memorize about a 15 to 17 minute speech, which was getting us ready for a TEDx that I think is a similar amount of time, maybe 18 minutes, something like that, 17, 18 minutes. Yeah. But again, no notes, no props, I think you can have something on the screen behind you, but maybe very limited. So we're going to find out. We're going to walk through that whole process next after we get the book behind us, which is a good way to do it, because I think you can get a little flummoxed having too many things, too many big projects going on at the same time.
Oh, yeah. And Michelle writes good tips. I like the agile way of progressing. You can apply these in many areas of life. I agree. Good. Yeah. Good. TEDx is a big deal, though, Mark. It's a big deal. You go on YouTube and you search for TEDx, and there are some amazing speakers out there. Yes. Allison's, matter of fact, did a TEDx at the end of last year. She did phenomenal. I'm very excited about that. And it's going to be pretty spectacular. And for folks, if you're interested in attending, it's going to be held at Lake Charles down in Georgia. And the link I went ahead and put up there, it's TEDxLakeCharles.com. And it's actually at a movie theater, which is really interesting because, when we spoke last year, Mark, in October in Atlanta, it was at a hotel. And of course, they had just a small riser, which was a stage. But this is a theater stage, which is pretty cool.
Yes. So, yeah. Well, I guess my last comment is you're right. It is going to be much more of a production, and we'd be lying if we said that we're all ready for it, right? We have a lot to learn, a lot to practice. I think, again, with the practice comes the confidence, and with the confidence we'll have a lot of support while we're there too.
Well, you did amazing last year. All the speakers did an amazing job. And did you, is your speech anywhere on the internet, Mark, or is it just something?
Oh, no, not that I have posted.
Okay.
So unless that replay site is still up, which I don't think it is something that I would like to put up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think folks would get a lot out of it. Like I said, you did an amazing job last year.
As did you, John.
Thank you. And I think people can get a lot of benefit from it. So I encourage you to do that. So, and we're at the 30-minute mark, as I suspected, and this happens every time I talk with engaging people. The time just flies by. And I know you're on Colorado time, I'm on East Coast time, and I got to eat. And eventually you're going to eat. So I will go ahead and let you go tonight. But I want to thank you so much, Mark, for, Christine just sent up I'm excited for you both. I know you will reach many hearts and change lives. I look forward to your books. Wonderful. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine. And Michelle.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Mark, for being on the show. This was a great way to kick off this year. You're my first guest this year. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
If you ever want to be on again, just let me know, because I'd love to have you. Because there's still, we didn't even talk about the fact that you play drums.
No.
We never got to it.
Maybe later in the year when we're done with all this and I need a release, I can bring them here to the virtual stage.
Yeah, bring them in. I'd love to hear it. All right, Mark. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thanks, everybody. Next week, I have Garrett Lowry on. Garrett is a painter. He's based out of Arizona, and he's going to be an amazing person to talk to. He's got a wonderful soul, and I can't wait to talk to him. So everybody, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all next week. Bye. Thank you so very much for joining me on the ARTalk podcast, where it's my goal to bring artists together to talk about their craft. If you'd like to join me for a conversation, please reach out via email at johncoleartist@gmail.com or by visiting my website at johnrobertcole.com. So until next time, keep crafting, painting, and inspiring others with your creativity. You make more of an impact than you know. See ya.